The stage lights burn white as Prince steps forward, guitar strapped high, eyes locked on the band. London, mid-2000s, a tribute setting charged with reverence. George Harrison's song is underway, familiar chords settling the room into comfort. Then Prince lifts the guitar neck and bends a note so hard it sounds like it might tear. George Harrison, seated nearby, looks up. The moment freezes there, a guitar, a solo, and a Beatle caught off guard. This is the instant even George Harrison is stunned. The turning point object is unmistakable, the electric guitar, screaming through a song everyone thought they knew. The stakes hang in the air. This isn't just a guest appearance, it's an audacious act inside sacred territory. Play it safe, and Prince disappears into the ensemble. Push too far, and he risks disrespecting a legacy that shaped modern music itself. Days earlier, the rules of this room were clear. This was a celebration of George Harrison's work, not a battlefield. Legends would show restraint. Solos would honor melody. The hierarchy was built into the seating. Elders at ease, younger players deferential. Prince, though already a legend, was an outsider here, an American polymath stepping into British rock royalty. The guitar he carried wasn't just an instrument, it was a question mark. Rehearsals reportedly felt polite, even restrained. The song chosen was one George Harrison had written decades earlier, its structure gentle, its emotional core understated. Prince listened more than he spoke, his guitar quiet, his posture relaxed. Some insiders later said he seemed almost bored. Others said he was waiting. The guitar rested against his hip like a coiled animal. The industry context sharpened everything. Guitar culture, especially rock guitar culture, guards its pantheon fiercely. George Harrison wasn't just a songwriter, he was a Beatle. His sound had shaped generations. For Prince, a black artist whose virtuosity often lived outside rock's traditional canon, to step into that space carried risk. Too flashy, and he'd be accused of showboating. Too restrained, and he'd be dismissed as ornamental. The night of the performance, the room filled with icons. Cameras were everywhere. The song began smoothly, George Harrison's presence anchoring the stage even when he wasn't playing. Prince stood back at first, strumming lightly, eyes down. The guitar sounded respectful, almost modest. Viewers watching later would note how little he drew attention early on. That restraint mattered. It set the trap. As the song progressed, the structure opened. A solo space emerged, brief but real. Other guitarists filled it politely, echoing the original phrasing. Prince waited. His hand hovered over the strings, fingers flexing. The guitar's volume knob was still turned down. This detail becomes important later, because control was always the point. The hierarchy in that moment was invisible but rigid. This was George Harrison's song. Prince was a guest. The expected move was a tasteful nod. The unexpected move was everything else. According to accounts, Prince glanced once toward George Harrison, not challenging, not apologetic, just checking the room. The band hit the turnaround. The cue arrived. Prince stepped forward. The guitar volume came up. The first note cut through the mix, sharper, louder, unmistakably his. Heads turned instantly. George Harrison's posture changed. He leaned in. The room sensed the shift before it understood it. The cliff edge forms right there, mid-song. Prince has announced himself. The guitar is no longer background, it's leading. The question hangs. Will he pull back in time, or will he push this solo past respect into legend? George Harrison watches, expression unreadable. The next notes will decide whether this becomes controversy or something people talk about forever.
The next seconds stretch.
every beat measured against George Harrison's legacy. Prince's guitar stays forward in the mix, the tone bright and cutting, but the phrasing still nods to the song's original spine. He isn't shredding yet, he's circling. George Harrison watches closely, chin tilted, eyes following Prince's hands as they climb the fretboard. This is escalation by restraint, the kind that makes an audience lean in without knowing why. At rehearsal earlier that day, according to musicians present, Prince had barely raised his volume. The guitar stayed clean, almost polite. That memory sharpens the contrast now. On stage, the volume knob is turned up just enough to cross a line. The note bends, linger longer. The vibrato widens. The guitar is beginning to speak in Prince's unmistakable accent, even while wrapped around George Harrison's melody. The next night's energy feeds him. The band senses it. Drums tighten. The bass locks in. Prince takes another step towards center stage, a physical move that mirrors the musical one. This is no accident. The guitar neck lifts higher, angled toward the lights. It's a visual declaration as much as a sonic one. George Harrison shifts in his seat, not recoiling, not smiling, studying. Dialogue floats in from the wings, remembered later by those close enough to hear it. "Is he really doing this?" someone whispers. Another voice counters, "Let him." That permission, spoken or implied, matters. In rooms like this, silence can be consent. Prince hears none of it. His focus stays on the strings and the pocket opening beneath his feet. The solo grows teeth, runs cascade faster now, notes tumbling with controlled aggression. The guitar's sustain stretches, harmonics squealing at the edge of feedback. This is where many players would pull back. Prince doesn't. He pivots his body toward George Harrison, not in confrontation, but in offering. The gesture reads like a question posed in sound. Can this song hold more? George Harrison's reaction becomes the anchor. He leans forward further, eyebrows raised, mouth slightly open. It isn't offense, it's surprise. Those who know him describe that look as recognition, the moment when a craftsman sees another craftsman break open a familiar tool. The guitar, once an homage, is now a challenge to the idea of containment. That morning's press expectations collapse in real time. This was supposed to be a tasteful tribute, the kind that confirms hierarchies. Instead, Prince is rewriting the script mid-song. The industry subtext hums beneath every note. A black artist, often categorized outside rock's inner sanctum, is claiming the center of a Beatles composition, not by erasing it, but by expanding it. Prince drops to one knee, still playing. The guitar screams. The visual shocks the room, but it's the precision that keeps it from becoming parody. Each phrase resolves cleanly back into the chord changes George Harrison wrote. The respect is embedded in the discipline. That's what keeps the audience from pushing back. They sense the math underneath the fire. The escalation hits another gear. Prince stands, spins slightly, and fires off a rapid run that climbs impossibly high. The guitar tone thickens. The band follows without missing a beat. This is now unmistakably Prince's moment, but it exists entirely inside George Harrison's song. The tension peaks right there. Ownership versus interpretation. Reverence versus audacity. George Harrison finally reacts outwardly. A laugh breaks across his face, brief but unmistakable. It lands like a release valve. The room exhales. If the song's creator isn't threatened, no one else has standing to be. That single expression recalibrates the power dynamic instantly. Prince hasn't stolen the spotlight, he's been granted it. The solo stretches longer than anyone expected. Cameras zoom in. The guitar becomes a character in its own right, its neck pointed skyward, strings blurring under Prince's fingers. The audience is fully captured now, clapping mid-phrase, something rarely done in a song like this. The cliff edge looms because there's still one question unanswered. How does he end it? Prince steps back toward George Harrison, still playing, still loud. The final bend hangs in the air, unresolved.
Will he land it gently, or will he detonate the moment completely? George Harrison's eyes are locked on him. The song is seconds from its turning point.
Prince holds that last bend longer than seems possible, the guitar's notes suspended above the stage like a held breath. His body leans back, curls spilling forward, heels planted near the monitors. The lights catch the chrome hardware of the guitar, flashing as his left hand finally releases the string. The sound resolves cleanly back into George Harrison's chord progression. No crash, no distortion spillover. It's control to the final millimeter. The exact reaction is immediate. George Harrison laughs again, louder this time, and nods, a small but unmistakable bow of acknowledgement. He doesn't reach for his own guitar. He lets Prince finish. That decision is the consequence. In a room full of legends, authority shifts not by force, but by permission, and George Harrison gives it in front of everyone. Prince punctuates the end with a sharp rhythmic figure, 3 clipped notes that land perfectly with the drummer's downbeat. The band snaps back into the song's structure, and the solo ends as decisively as it began. There's no lingering flourish. The guitar drops to Prince's side. He steps back half a pace, eyes down, as if returning borrowed space. The audience erupts. Applause breaks through before the song is even fully over, claps stacking on top of the final chords. Cameras swing between Prince and George Harrison, searching for a narrative, a winner, a reaction shot that explains what just happened. What they catch instead is George Harrison smiling, shaking his head slightly, the expression of someone who has just watched a familiar room gain an extra wall. The immediate aftermath is subtle but telling. Backstage, according to accounts from musicians present, conversations stall on that moment. People replay the solo in fragments. Did you hear that run? Did you see George's face? As if trying to pin down where respect ended and astonishment began. The guitar itself becomes a talking point, as if the object carried agency, as if those strings had decided to speak beyond their assignment. By the next morning, the system responds in its own language. Media coverage shifts tone. The story is no longer just a tribute performance, it's framed as a reminder. Headlines circle around Prince's musicianship, his command of rock vocabulary, his ability to step into a canon and alter its temperature without burning it down. George Harrison's stunned reaction becomes shorthand, a visual stamp of approval that travels farther than any quote. What changes next is quieter, but more lasting. Industry insiders reference that performance when discussing Prince in rooms where genre borders used to be enforced. The anchor detail always returns to the same place, that guitar solo, that nod from George Harrison, that silence before the applause. It becomes evidence, not that Prince could play, everyone already knew that, but that he could inhabit another legend's work without shrinking or overreaching. The cultural meaning sharpens with distance. This wasn't about one man outplaying another. It was about authorship versus interpretation, about who gets to expand a song's possibilities. George Harrison's stunned look mattered because it signaled recognition, not surprise at audacity, but surprise at depth. The room went quiet because the hierarchy it relied on briefly failed to explain what was happening. Prince's own response afterward stays consistent with his on-stage demeanor. No victory lap, no public commentary dissecting the moment. The guitar had already said what needed saying. In an industry addicted to explanation, silence becomes part of the statement. The object, the guitar, returns to being just an instrument, but the memory of what passed through it lingers. Years later, musicians still point to that night when discussing musical courage. Not reckless courage, but precise courage. The kind that understands the rules well enough to bend them without snapping the frame. The turning point wasn't the speed of the notes or the volume of the amp.
It was the decision to trust that a song could survive expansion and the confidence to prove it in front of its creator. George Harrison's stunned reaction endures because it captures a rare alignment, respect flowing both directions, legacy meeting possibility. In that frozen image, Prince with the guitar, George Harrison watching, there's a quiet lesson the industry doesn't always like to admit. Control doesn't come from guarding the door, it comes from knowing when to open it. The brutal truth lands there. That night didn't make Prince great, it exposed how small the boxes around greatness had been.